remember to buy a copy of your favorite books from the Cheeky Merchants. If we don't have it, we'll source it for you, but we'll definitely find the book for you. Hello, Cheeky Natives. Welcome to another episode of the Cheeky Natives.
Thank you, and welcome to another episode of the Cheeky Natives, where we talk about books. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I can't complain. How are you?
I'm good. I'm doing well.
Today we have a very special guest who's been on the Cheeky Natives before. I'm excited to welcome Zibu Sithole, who lives in Johannesburg with her son. She is a published ghostwriter and a journalist with experience writing for television and radio, as well as print and digital media. Zibu released her debut novel, The Thing with Zola, in 2023, and we are excited to discuss I Don't I, which is the sequel to The Thing with Zola. Welcome, Zibu.
Thank you so much for having me again. So excited to be here.
Zibu, I suppose the first question is, I think sequels are hard, right? I just feel like sometimes the joy of a debut novel is that you're introduced to the writer for the first time. And sometimes with a sophomore novel, and particularly with the sequel, there is a bit of a challenge because people want the same intensity they got in the debut. I wanted to talk a little bit about that. When you were writing the sequel, what are some of the consideration you had around how will people receive your sequel, but also your sophomore novel?
The sequel was already planned out in my head by the time I wrote it. It came along with the first novel. The debut and the sequel came together. It's the same story. The biggest challenge was fitting in the critiques I got from the first novel into the sequel without compromising the story, because the story already exists. Now there are people who have gone out to buy this novel, invested emotionally in these characters, and have certain expectations. How do you meet those without compromising on the story you've already created, that's already played out in your head? That was the biggest challenge. And it continues to be a challenge as I receive feedback now on the sequel, especially from people who are reading the first and the second book together, because they somehow expect you to put in their critiques like you bought them at the same time. How am I going to do that?
I'm excited to get into the book. I have so many questions about our girls going through it all, but I'm always interested in relationships, and I think it's interesting that you've just spoken about the relationship with your readers and how attached we all feel to the book. But I want to speak firstly about the location of the book. So the book for Zola, in the first third of the book, takes place in Rwanda, right? And Rwanda is a space for connection where Zola comes into her own. Her relationship with some of the key figures in her life, like Mbali, but also with her sister, really come to the fore. So I want to talk about why you chose Rwanda as a place of connection.
Because it was a very selfish decision. I absolutely love Rwanda. Aside from the history, which is quite similar to South Africa's, you see the growth. They've gone leaps and bounds with their economy, with their infrastructure. Rwanda has done what we all hoped South Africa would do. And it also makes sense for Zola to become what we all hoped Zola would be in Rwanda. It's beautiful, it's growing, it's cosmopolitan, it's exciting, and it's African. Because we think of making international moves, we think of going overseas, we think of Europe, we think of America. But for Zola, her biggest growth point, she peaked emotionally and as a human being, as a girlfriend, as a sister, as a daughter. She peaked in Rwanda, and it was important for me, to see her do that in Rwanda instead of in Germany. Let's do away with the Eurocentric ideals and all of that.
I think it's an interesting commentary because I'm like, yeah, maybe you're right. It's an African thing that you can go to Africa and become the best person you want to be, right? For me, I want to start with the unlikely people to start with, right? We know the thing with Zola was about Zola, and the sequel is also about Zola. But I think there's a little bit of a pivot, right? In the thing with Zola, we know that Okuhle, our problematic fave, finds love, right? And we're excited because we're like, oh my gosh, what's happening? But it seems that things happen quite fast for Okuhle, right? And for me, I was interested in this idea of the fallacy of time, right? So we often speak about like longer relationships are successful. So we speak about the idea that, oh my gosh, how can these people get married, want to get married so soon after they meet? Okuhle's mom is also sharing a bit of what's happening here. It's interesting what you do with Okuhle in this relationship. On the one hand, I feel that Okuhle is in love in the genuine sense of the word, but I don't think that Okuhle understands this type of love as a purity, genuine type of love. She's always had to perform, had to receive love either from her parents or Mbali, and possibly to receive love from whatever other men she's had to encounter and be in relationships with. And even for her so-called friends, there is always some performance. And it feels that she takes that performance and she puts it in this relationship. And ultimately, she gets frustrated by her own performance, right? Because I feel like Leroux had not asked her to perform. So my question is twofold, right? This commentary about the fallacy of time and also the expectation of wanting to mold herself into someone she's not, believing that she would get the love she wants.
I am completely with you. Okuhle is a performer through and through, to the extent that even Okuhle doesn't know who the real Okuhle is. She is the Okuhle she thinks Mbali wants in the beginning, and now she's the Okuhle she thinks Leroux wants. She is completely missing how genuine he is in loving her for who she actually is and who she could actually be. So she's missed that part of the relationship completely, which would have been such a beautiful thing. But we know our girl, she would never appreciate any of that. She is in many ways me, because I don't do things in small measures. So it's either we're all in or we're not doing it at all. In her performance, Okuhle went all in. She looks different. She speaks differently. Her habits are different. Her tastes are different. Does Okuhle have taste? Does she have a personality? Does Okuhle exist? She is whoever she thinks people want her to be, and she misses out on a lot because of that. I see myself sometimes in that. There are lots of other people we see. We see our friends. There are people who perform. Like when I'm with you, I'm like this. When I'm with someone else, I'm like that. And we miss out on a lot. That is what Okuhle represents. We think duality is a good thing, but it's not always, because you miss out on being a real person. You miss out on reality. As for the concept of time, we all struggle with that, right? Because it's either take time to know him, or when there are two sides of the same coin. When you're in love, does it really take you 10 years to find out if you're in love? Or do you just know when you meet a person and you click instantly? Or does it actually take 10 years to ignite the spark? I am with Okuhle. You either know or you don't. And if you don't know, then is it actually worth it? Are you in love, or are you working yourself into a frenzy, creating something that isn't there to start with, convincing yourself to fall in love? That's where Zola and Okuhle differ. Okuhle is jumping in head first with Leroux. She's going to do whatever it takes. She wants this, so she's going to make it work. Zola is questioning whether it's worth the time, whether you want to make it work. She has so much anxiety around her relationships. She had anxiety about her relationship with Gunta. She questioned herself into a breakup, because if it wasn't for her questioning and overthinking, she was not going to find out. She messed around and found out that Gunta is, don't look at me like that, Tochi.
Coming for Gunta. We are coming
also, if it takes 10 years, maybe he's not the one. Like,
exactly.
Maya Angelou said, love is many things, but it's not, I'm sure. So,
come on, Maya.
Yeah, I'm a believer. If I feel if you meet someone today and in 3 months you want to marry them, let's go. But I'm curious about the relationship between Zola and Tobile. We see them go a little bit deeper. So in the first book, we see what it means to be a firstborn in many ways. Zola experiences her mother completely differently to what Tobile experiences, but because there's also a large age gap, she also wants to leave home at a very particular time. She almost wants to escape, and Tobile bears the brunt of that in terms of not getting to know her sister. But in this book, there's a way in which they navigate their relationship, right? So you see them get to know each other. And I thought that was very sweet to think about our siblings as actual people, particularly younger siblings, right? To think of them as people with interests and desires, and who can be audacious and problematic. And I wanted to speak a little bit about developing the relationship between Tobile and Zola.
So with Tobile and Zola, Zola didn't really play her role as the deputy parent because the older sibling is the deputy parent. She's been away for so long. I think deputy parents are so important in shaping how we make decisions because
Don't we know
even
it?
when
Don't we know it as deputy parents? Amma and I are both deputy parents, so don't we know it?
yeah, thank you guys for being the first pancake. The first pancake always gets a little bit burnt, right? The second one arrives when you know how to moderate the heat. So Tobile is that second pancake. Second children and last children have more leeway. You can be more open, you can be more daring, where the firstborn is usually more cautious, and that's Uzola. She had a plan, she was focused. Now she has to deal with her crazy little sister who doesn't seem to have a plan, doesn't seem to be focused, and is trying to shatter the mold completely. Zola is tested by Tobile. Her beliefs are tested. The way she sees the world is tested. Because in as much as she loves her little sister, she doesn't know Tobile very well. Seeing that side of Tobile, especially in Rwanda, caused Zola to question how she's living her life and if she's actually happy. There is a passage where Tobile is, but you've got so much freedom, and Zola is, are you for real? Because is Zola free? She's been away from home, but because she bears the weight of everyone's expectations, including her own, she's not really free to choose how she lives her life and what she does with her life. So she can live vicariously through Tobile in a way by being a buffer and getting Nomsebenzi to unravel the leash a little bit and let Tobile go out into the world, let Tobile live the life that neither Nomsebenzi or Uzola were able to live before. So that relationship, it's complicated, but it's beautiful. And I do love how Tobile, in a way, gets Zola to grow out of herself.
I think it's also very gendered, and I think that's something that comes out as well, right? There are particular expectations that people have of their older siblings who are girls that they may not necessarily have of their brothers. So there's almost an understanding that if your older sibling is a girl, there are very particular gendered ways in which you're expected to navigate the world. And I think that their relationship also showcases that. I don't know if people would feel the same way about Zola almost choosing not to step into the deputy parent role if she wasn't the firstborn African daughter.
That is true. If Zola had been a boy, her going to see the world would have been more glorified. It would have been fantastic, wonderful. But because she's a girl, the expectation is for her to get married, settle down, do things a certain way, extend the home, be there for everyone, provide, be this nurturing figure, which doesn't come naturally to Uzola. And I like that she is able to be there for her sister and kind of mother her a little bit without losing herself completely. Because for women, especially when people see a woman, they want you to be the Madonna or the other thing. And Zola doesn't fit into either of those categories. And in that way, she is like most of us, because none of us are one thing throughout our entire lives. We are all different things at different times for different reasons. I'm happy that Zola got to be Zola, even when she had to take responsibility of Tobile for that short period of time.
We're taking a short break. We're taking a short break.
It's interesting. I think about this book as quite different to the debut, right? been about relationships. There's a lot of friction everywhere. No one is left unscathed by the friction that happens. I wanted to speak about the prospect of marriage for Okuhle and Leruo. The Honorable Minister is classist. We know that already. The dad doesn't play a frontal role in Okuhle's life until they must come to the house, the traditional stuff in order to get married. But then we see a really interesting thing. It feels like class plays quite an important role. So suddenly it's not about love, right? Suddenly it's about you must marry the man who has a particular level of achievement or wealth. And it feels like Leruo is just not the right type of guy. He's not living in the right type of town. And it's interesting to see Okuhle pandering to her parents, right? So you think about, for instance, her and Leruo make a decision about not having a big wedding or a big engagement party, but the engagement party is actually quite big and extravagant in order to appease Okuhle's parents, right? And so I wanted to speak about like that class friction that happens there in relation to her family. Like, oh, you can't marry this man because he lives on the wrong side of the highway.
Little I want to challenge you a little. I think you think of Leroux almost being innocuous, right? Oh, Leroux is such a good person. Him and Okuhle come to decisions, but many of those choices are Leroux's decisions and not Okuhle's, right? There's a temptation to believe that she doesn't want all of these things, but I think she actually does. And I think there's a compromise she makes for Leroux that is not different from the compromise she makes for everybody else. And I think it's interesting that you think her decisions are like, oh, we want to have a small engagement party. Maybe she actually does want to have a big engagement party, but there's this crisis because she's also painted herself to be a very particular way to appease Leroux. I don't know that Leroux is just from the wrong side of the tracks and her parents don't like him because of that. I think there's very particular ways in which Okuhle panders to Leroux, which are not different from the ways in which she panders to everybody else in her life.
I completely agree with you, right? And I think that the decisions she makes is pandering, right? Because Okuhle is a performer. Like her actually saying what she wants, she's afraid that it might end the relationship, right? But I think what's particular is that we know in some ways that Okuhle wants the extravagant wedding, right? Okuhle wants the extravagant engagement. We know that. But there's a way in which class plays a particular role. I'm not saying Leroux is not wealthy because they've gone to the same school, so there is some bit of money. But I think the way in which Okuhle's parents interact with his family is very telling about what they expect of their daughter in terms of marriage. But Zibu, I feel like these characters lived in your head a lot more, so you may enlighten us.
With Okuhle and Leroux, it's a bit of both. You're both right, because Okuhle does play different roles. She's a stage character. She's not a real person. When she's with Leroux, she wants the earthy thing. She wants to wrap her head. She wants to go to the flea market. She wants a wedding in the forest. But when she's with her mom, she's mom's princess. She wants the diamonds. She wants the bling. So she wants them both because she herself doesn't know which one actually fits into her personality. She agreed to both, and she means it both times because the real Okuhle has not developed, even in her mind. She also doesn't have an idea of who the real Okuhle is. And it's an opportunity for her to grow as a human being, as a wife, maybe, and definitely as a daughter, a friend, and a businesswoman. The decisions she makes challenge not only the people around her, but they challenge her as well, because she's built an entire empire, and that has been her life. Larger than life is Okuhle's life. That is her baby. When Zola comes in to the company, she says, "This is my baby." But at the drop of a hat, because this wedding that she's been planning since she knew they were weddings, because of that possibility, now she's going to drop everything. She's leaving the empire she's been building. She's not a businesswoman anymore. She's now just a gone girl. That is her entire identity, gone girl. Okuhle's parents are parenting the Okuhle they know, not Leroux's Okuhle, because they don't know that girl. It's just Okuhle and Leroux that know her. She doesn't exist for anyone else. That is why Mbali is shocked when he meets this girl, because this is not the woman he grew up with. This is someone completely new. This is someone who likes strange things, who has strange hair, who drives strange cars. It's not Okuhle. The mom wants to give her daughter what she believes her daughter wants, the daughter she knows, while Leruo is making decisions for his Okuhle, him and his Okuhle, who are two different people. The question is, which Okuhle went to India? That is the question. Which Okuhle is with Leruo now?
But I think also for me, I want to fight you, Zibu, because I just felt Okuhle running to India is such an Okuhle thing to do. So there is a lack of duality in both Zola and Okuhle. Instead of Okuhle confronting what she has to confront, she taps out. She runs away. Initially, on my first reading, I was like, oh my gosh, another happy beginning because they're going to start their life. Now I'm like, maybe she was just running away because her parents were like, girl, you are a certain particular type of girl. And Leruo is a particular type. So in many ways, she was running away to be like, I don't need to deal with anyone. At least in India, I can decide which Okuhle is going with Leruo, because there is a kind of moment where she does become honest with Leruo to be like, oh, baby, allow me some coffee. And allow me some this and allow me some this. So we hope that the Okuhle that is in India is a little bit more enlightened than the one that we encountered.
No, I think August is like the one character who, in many ways, just refuses to grow, right? You're an adult. There's a stifling that a lot of people do where you almost relegate your agency to somebody else, right? So if it's not your parents, it'll be your spouse. Then you're older, then it's your children, right? And there's a relegation of her agency that she does. So she has this wedding. She, at the very last minute, chooses to do something that's almost very cowardly.
I agree, girl.
There are people in your life that you've invited who come, and she had the option. No, but also the fact that she subjected Uluru to that, as opposed to just saying to her parents, this is my partner, this is the person I love, I'm going to protect them and our decisions, and I'm going to be very clear about the kind of things that we do. And I think that there's just a statement about the ways in which people refuse to outgrow their comforts that Okuhle participates in, because it's very easy to say, oh, Okuhle's parents are difficult, or she's privileged, or she doesn't know who she is. But she has very particular senses of the things that she may not want to do. And I think that in the book, she's probably the one character who's most committed to staying the same. And a lot of that is just under the veneer of finding myself. But like finding yourself also then harms the people in your life.
But we know this about Okuhle. She is selfish, and that is why she thinks it's okay to do what she did. She thinks it's romantic because it's nice for her to run away to India and not have to tell her mom that I love him, he's scruffy, he's this, he's that, but this is the person I've chosen because this is the person who's chosen me. And in the same breath, refusing to tell Leruo that we can go for the hike, but afterwards I'd like to really have a cup of coffee and go to the spa every now and then. She doesn't want to confront that. She doesn't want to risk this love that she's finally gotten because she has never felt that she was properly loved. She chased him for her entire life and he never loved her. But now here's Leruo and he is actually in love with Okuhle. She can't risk losing that by showing him who she really is. She needs to be whatever it is he loves so she can get that love. It's a selfish thing because not allowing the people in your life to see who you really are, you are depriving them of a person they could potentially love even more, of the real you. So she is play acting, she is doing what Okuhle does, and yes, she is refusing to grow, but she is at a point where she has to make a decision, right? So this is the perfect opportunity for her to choose either to grow or to become even more immature and selfish than she has been before.
So we've gone in really hard on Okuhle. Maybe we just like projecting our own frustrations. I'm curious about the relationships with the mothers in this book. Zola and her mom. I think the mothers in this book represent extremes, right? You have Okuhle's mother, who's extremely overprotective, overly involved. She's the epitome of a helicopter parent in ways that are stifling. Zola's mother is the opposite of that. She's very closed off. She is not emotionally vulnerable. We don't know much about her. There's almost like a barrier in the ways in which Zola and Nomsebenzi can interact with each other, right? In very real ways. Then you think about Mbali and his mother, and there's almost like an infantilization of the mothers. His mother is almost like his peer, like his friend, and he knows things about his parents that potentially as a child you should not be in the mix of. Speak a little bit about all of those relationships. I find to really be on the extremes at every end. There's just no mother here who wants to be the paragon of mothering excellence, right?
I also want to add another mother in the mix, the aunt, Zola's aunt. She's also extreme. Every mother here has her own issue. So Zibu, tell us, like, why do these mothers, they're extreme, right? As Alma said, mom is, oh, my child, I'm going to do everything for you. Zola's mom is, girl, I lived my life, you got to live yours. This is my house. And Mbali's mom, yeah, man, she's too familiar in my sense. And I want to talk about the other kind of thing later on about allowing older Black women to have their sexuality. But in this particular aspect of motherhood, she's just too friendly. And then there is the cousin's mom who, I know her. I know that Black woman. I know her.
So yes, Mina is very familiar. We all know Mina. We know her. Zozo's mother, she wants to achieve things through her kids. She wants to live vicariously through her kids. Her disappointments belong to her kids. Her kids' successes belong to her. She is that mother, and we know her, and we can't ignore her existence, right? In as much as we'd like to paint this portrait of Black mothers in the township being these wonderful, God-fearing, nurturing things, we all know the reality is Black mothers in the township are human beings. We have our own personalities, we have our own likes and dislikes, and we definitely have our faults. And Mina's faults are they are Mina's faults. We've all seen them, we've all had to interact with Mina at some point in our lives. And Nomsebenzi also has her faults. Her and Mina are sisters. They are similar in some ways and different in other ways. While Nomsebenzi also has expectations of her daughters, they're not the same ones that Mina has. Mina seems to have just given up. While Nomsebenzi wants nice things for her children, their relationship is strained because the reality of the class division is it's not just money, right? Money is time. While Priscilla and Ongama can be overbearing and be there for their kids at every step, there's no way Nomsebenzi watched the netball games for Tobile and Zola. Nomsebenzi works a retail job. So the relationship will never be as close as Nomsebenzi wants it to be. She doesn't have the luxury of being a helicopter parent and mothering her kids so closely. She needs to let them do their own thing more than she should, more than she wants to, more than they want her to. That is a class reality. And I couldn't plaster over it because then we lose the reality of the relationship. It's nice to juxtapose that with the rich people because the rich people also have their problems. Priscilla is a good mommy. She's a good mommy with all the resources. If I had all of the resources, I would Priscilla my child. I would definitely Priscilla my child.
To a fault.
No,
What we get is Okuhle.
No.
What we get is Okuhle. And Okuhle, we don't know. She don't even know.
But that's also just a different side of a coin, right? Both of the mothers you've described are very anxiously attached to their children. Sebenzi is anxious because she wants her children to turn out in very particular ways, but she also feels very powerless. They're living in environments that are completely out of her lived experience, but also out of the realm of what she thinks she's able to do. She can't give Zola life advice. She's never been in an airplane. What is she going to tell Zola about working the corporate ladder? But Ongama is also very anxiously attached to her child. Priscilla is anxiously attached to her child. So there is an understanding that her daughter is not equipped to live life as an independent adult. And that's why almost at every point her mother needs to step in and intervene and do things for her. Those moms are just anxiously attached. And I don't know if it's resources. We're just seeing what it looks like to be anxiously attached with resources. Priscilla has all the resources in the world. Her daughter's been equipped with so much in terms of life experience, but she still doesn't trust that her daughter can make decisions and stand firm on them without her mother constantly interfering. So I don't know if that's what you would want for your child. Do you want a grown child who cannot say no to anybody, including you?
I'm not saying it's healthy. I'm saying
it's good.
I'm just saying.
It's good. You get a blue light brigade. You get everything that you want. You run a media empire. Yes, I see you. We can talk about healthy, but it's good. She got money.
I boost your kids. Why not do it?
100%. 100%. Hashtag team empower your children with connections. Let's go. I'm for it. The idea now as a parent, I'm terrified of raising a child. What happens if tomorrow I'm dead? I just have this child
who has a trust fund.
She wouldn't trust herself to manage.
Blow it.
Or she's always going to defer to somebody else because she's just not had the kind of confidence to trust herself and the kind of confidence that she needs to also believe that you can make mistakes and still be okay. I think we're seeing somebody who's scared to disappoint. Both of them actually are afraid to disappoint people in their lives. Like whether it's Zola afraid to disappoint the people in her life or Okuhle being afraid to disappoint her parents. It's just like this perpetual desire to please and perform. And I don't know if we need another generation of Black children who have those kind of anxieties.
We don't need them, but the reality is they're in our future.
No.
Not all of them are going to be like that, but a lot of them are in the interactions we have on play dates, at parents' evenings. We see the Ongama, we see the Priscilla, we see the Nomsebenzi, they're still there. Even in our generation, I think we need to confront these character flaws so that we can get away from them. The more we shy away from them and pretend that mothers are something else, the more likely we are to fall into the trap because you need to recognize it to avoid it.
That's true. Infidelity, man.
The ghetto, the white refrigerator, the ghetto.
We know Mbali's dad from the thing with Zola. It's an open secret in the community that he's cheating again. She's made her lot in life, but the extent of a child and a marriage. I was just like, this man has gone and lost his mind. And then there is Gunta. Guys, Gunta and Ajola Lilisedi all this time. Ajola Lizola Lilisedi. Atamika black girl. Hey.
A multitasking fetish.
Listen.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
I was shook. I don't want to lie. I was shook. I was like, it's disgusting. 3 years.
It is disgusting. Gunta is disgusting.
But I really think it's important for us to explore Mbali's father, right? Because we think of cheating as a thing that happens in the periphery. We don't often think about the effects that cheating has on the cheatee. So you think about the cheater and be like, oh, he's so disgusting. But so much of how Ongama behaves is predicated on the ways in which her self-esteem has been completely destroyed by having this person constantly cheat on you and embarrass you. And there's lots of societal things, like you're saying. They're classed. Pouring water on him, and
so that's what she should be doing, hot water at that.
No, but I'm saying that there's class protections, right? They're in their estate and they make a mess and it's embarrassing, but it's not visible in the ways that in a different space it would be. But it's embarrassing nonetheless. And I think it was important that you highlighted what infidelity looks like. My friend calls cheating a character flaw. She's just like, cheating is a character. There's something profoundly wrong with your character if you're comfortable with infidelity. And I think it's interesting that you brought that up.
I think it's also fascinating to think about money as power, right? So Mbali's dad is able to do the things that he's doing because he's loaded, right? He's able to pacify his wife by giving her all these shopping trips, right? And nobody's actually thinking about the kind of emotional turmoil that she's had to endure, because it's an embarrassment that everyone in the estate knows, that to the extent that we know that he's even done this in front of Mbali. And he's able to do this because he's loaded. So he's, oh, you can't touch me anyways. I'm paying for your business. Without me, you can't do nothing. So for me, you're completely correct. And then also to be disrespectful. After you've put this woman through so much, now you've decided I'm going to do even more because she's pregnant. And then, like Cheetah, why are you impregnating people?
Impregnating kids. Because this girl is so much younger than Ongama. Elias is the epitome of the dirty old man. We had to put him in the ripped up skinny jeans and the high top sneakers with his belly hanging over the shiny belt, because that is the stereotype. You see them, you know what they're about. F daddy. That is what Elias is. He's disdainful Ongama because that's the reality of it. He treats her this way because he married her, but he hates her and he's always hated her. You see it in their wedding portrait, all the pictures, the things that Ongama prizes. You see him glaring. He's angry. He's displeased. His face is sour. On the happiest day of Ongama's life, he's looking sour because he hates her. He's the guy who smashes the wedding cake into the bride's face. He's that groom. He's marrying you, but he really hates you. And he wants you to know it. You're going to marry him anyway, because you're not marrying him as a person. You're marrying the status. Exactly. And being Mrs., it's a big thing for lots of people. It is a big thing. It is bigger than being loved, respected, and treated well. They'd rather be Mrs. than live in peace. And that is a choice. We've heard about her making it, and now we get to witness it face to face. Watch her make that choice. We've seen the damage that Elias does to her, and we watch her make the choice. Which, look, it's terrible, it's toxic, it hurts me, and I am a shattered human being, but I choose it because it has its comfort. And as toxic as that is, it is the reality so many women around the world live with. We hear the stories that happen to celebrities in abusive relationships, celebrities who are being cheated on repeatedly, and they choose to stay because there are certain benefits to being in that awful, abusive, soul-destroying marriage. There are still benefits.
But Ongam is just a problem.
I want to come for you. I want to come for you. Be careful.
Come for me. But it's also the ways in which she interacts with Zola that I find profoundly problematic. So
I'm not going to come for you there because
there's a class thing, right? I made it out the hood. And we all know those people who make it out the hood and then suddenly pretend to not understand the dynamics of the hood. And then you begin to look down on people who move in particular ways. Almost as though you've always inhabited this social circle of privilege and wealth when you haven't. And you've had to make particular sacrifices to your dignity and your public persona to maintain those relationships. I think the interactions between her and Uzola are just so deeply disturbing that it actually makes it hard for you to sympathize with Ongama, because Mbali's dad sucks. Like, he sucks on profound levels. Like, he sucks. But she also sucks in particular ways as well. There's a duality and a conflict that I felt in reading that book. Like, why are you coming for Uzola when you are nervous to come for your husband? You are unable to confront him and the reality of your situation. But here you are making Zola feel like a budget Okuhle. It didn't sit right in my spirits.
And I think...
But Ongam as a bully.
And connected to that, I also think she is lashing out at the wrong person, right? So in many ways, she sees Zola as these men that Elias dates. And so she's lashing out at Zola because she needs to lash out at someone. And Zola, unfortunately, is there. And it's disgusting, right? Because she reminds me of those type of people who would say, okay, how much do you need to stay out of my son's life? She would essentially pay for Zola to leave because she's dealing with her own thing, but she also sees a particular life for her son. Okuhle and Mbali were destined to end up together, and the mothers would have been happy with that. And so own expectation of Mbali and who he was supposed to marry.
And Mbali is her everything now, because for the first time, he's really in love. He is defying her, and she's losing the grip of the only thing that makes her happy. I mean, she's in the miserable marriage. She's got all of these things, but the only thing that makes her happy is her baby boy. Now her baby boy is Zola's man and doesn't want to play the baby boy anymore. Suddenly he's short with her. He can tell her that he's got boundaries, like boundaries that come from where? Because he's always been mama's little baby boy, letting her overstep. Now he's puffing his chest up because he's got this woman in his life, this person he loves. And that's what love does to you sometimes, right? When it's a good kind of love, it makes you grow. It makes you distance yourself from certain behaviors. And Ongama seeing Mbali grow like that, it's terrifying because he is her crutch. Whenever Elias does these weird, psycho, dirty things, she can at least look at her son and be like, I'm doing this for Mbali. But now Mbali is distancing himself from Elias's money. He's distancing himself from Ongama's grip and Ongama's lack of boundaries, Ongama's overbearing weirdness, like being in your son's shower, in his bedroom, hanging your underwear in your son's bathroom. All of those things are a lack of boundaries, a lack of self that Ongama is displaying. And Mbali is distancing himself from that. And it's terrifying for her. And she sees Zola and she thinks, you are the cause of this and you need to leave. Because once you've left with Okuhle, none of this was an issue. Because Mbali was not so crazy in love with Okuhle. So he didn't change, he didn't grow. He stayed the same and did what they wanted him to do. So it's terrifying for Ongama to see her baby boy in love. And that's why she's fighting. She's angry. She's scared.
Boy moms need to work a little bit harder to beat the allegations.
No.
Guys, Zola had that deal, man.
No. She was going to surprise her man. I get it. She was being sexy, seductive, sultry. Just too much. My friend was saying the other day, we were discussing a situation that somebody was caught up in and it was splashed across newspaper headlines. But it was the idea of Black women's lives being cautionary tales, right? She was saying, I'm so tired of Black women's lives being cautionary tales. At the time, I was okay. But then I think of Zozo, right? Like Zozo is so bright, has so much going on for her. And she hangs on to this man who is dead weight in very particular ways. Only a straight man with no personal ambitions, no recognition of your place in his life, no recognition of the weight of even fatherhood can be. And I was really hurt by the trajectory of Zozo's life. It does perk up in the end, but Zozo also then is burdened with the reality of then having to become a single parent. And parenting is difficult. Like, parenting is difficult, and to do it alone is even more difficult. I wanted to talk about Zozo because I found her to be simultaneously heartbreaking, but it's beautiful to see her take charge and control of her situation. But it's also sad that she lands up in that situation with that guy.
The love of her life. And I think falling out of love with Thabo is the best thing that could have ever happened to Zozo. Because she downplays her own graduations, her achievements, her potential as a human being. She is so obsessed with Thabo, and that's her from the beginning. Even Uzola's annoyed, which that's all she ever talks about. The prospect of becoming a mother forces her to see him as himself and not the love story that existed mainly in her head. And when she falls out of love with Thabo, beautiful things happen. She gives birth. This baby didn't want to be born into this dirty relationship. Thank goodness it's over and comes out. And for Zozo, it's a rebirth for Uzozo. I'm happy for her, because while many people see having a baby as a reason to be attached to a man who doesn't deserve your love and loyalty, for Uzozo, becoming a parent forced her to look at life in a different way. And she grew. When she became a mother, she grew and she let go of Utabo.
Tabo is trash in very particular ways. And I think it's sad because we all know it's Tabo and we all know it's Zozo. And
I I think one of the things I want to fight you about is I felt that Mbali and Zola's relationship wasn't explored in its depth. You wrote complex characters and relationships, create some fiction. But I felt that the love that I got from your debut was not in the sophomore. I wanted to know if that was intentional. I want to be like, but black love, black love. Or is it the fact that there was this honeymoon phase in the first book, and now I was hoping for the continuation of the honeymoon phase, but actually there's some real life things that happen?
You're right in the second instance. Zola has grown up. The honeymoon is over. This is the reality. It's still black love, but black love isn't just receiving flowers at work and going on romantic dates. There is, I need to go to work. Work is hectic, so I can't call you and text you all day, every day. That is the reality of it. And now they're living the reality of black love. It's not always going to be butterflies and happy days. Sometimes it's going to get real. Not only sometimes, but most of the time. And Uzwala is now living the reality of black love, the reality of being in a relationship with a actual human being. Because Mbali is, he's a person. He's got a life. He's got a job. He's trying to become something else. He's trying to grow as a business person, as Mtunzi's bestie, as Ongama's son.
I want to talk a little bit about Gunta before we wrap up. Because Gunta is a proxy for the ways in which we romanticize the past. Gunta had treated her badly, and I think if she's being honest with herself, the relationship was in many ways one-sided, and that's why Gunta could have a whole other side relationship for 3 years. There's a way in which you speak about romanticizing the past that memory does, and Gunta is such a great example of that, because she sees him and it's just, me. I can't believe I was located in Global. And that's the best. When you see someone and you're just like, I can't believe I ever had chest pains. What's going on? Gunta, Zola, Lisedi are like, yeah, there's an interesting way in which you show the ways in which memory allows us to romanticize even people who've been terrible for us.
I wonder whether Zola felt that she wasn't chosen and Lisedi was, like, not good enough element happening. So maybe she doesn't want to go back, but she's romanticizing that, oh, how could you not have chosen me? How could you not have flown to South Africa for me, but you flew to South Africa for Lisedi?
And there is a very glaring rule said, because being unable to be lost in Gunta's world, in what Gunta wants, what Gunta's mother wants. Zola has had a run-in with a horrible Mama Zala before, even though it is in a different way, where Gunta's mom saw her as a project, as a pet, something to fix and turn into a Eurocentric idea. Ulisedi is willing to be molded in that way, where Zola isn't. That is why it makes sense for Gunta to choose Ulisedi, to want to do the absolute most for her when he was not able to do that for.
We really loved your sophomore novel because for us it's about outside the honeymoon phase, outside the wonderful things of Black love, there's also the real reality of Black love. And I think this book really does allow us to dive quite deeply into that. So thank you so much. I'm hoping to see this on screen, to be honest. I just think it would make such a beautiful screen.
I'm hoping so too. We are working on it, but these things are so complicated, so much more complicated than I thought they were, until I found myself in this world of negotiating and navigating it. in the end, we want the story to stay the story we wrote, even when we're watching it. So we're navigating that, and hopefully cross fingers and pray for a creative soulmate. We'll get to see Zola and Okuhle on screen and put faces to their names and their stories.
Thank you so much, Zibu, and we're really looking forward to it. We can't wait to see what happens in the next novel as well. Thank you once again for bringing all your characters to the fore. We can't wait to see the next episode. Please do buy Zibu's books. Both of them are available. And congratulations, Zibu, for the long listing as well.
Exciting. Didn't see it coming. Yay.
Congratulations, Zibu. Until next time, we're outie.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Cheeky Natives. Don't forget to subscribe, review, and rate the podcast on all your streaming platforms.